Jake sat alone in his small office on Galactic Trade Station 7. The room was dark except for the blue glow of his computer screen. He scrolled through thousands of entries in a database that most aliens did not know existed. Humans called it the Kindness Ledger. The ledger was old. It began on the first day humanity met another species among the stars. Every act of help, every moment of mercy, every small kindness that any alien had ever shown to a human was recorded here. Nothing was forgotten. Nothing was too small to remember. Jake stopped scrolling when he reached an entry from the year 2289. A trade ship had found a human cargo vessel drifting in dead space. The human ship had lost power. Life support was failing. 43 people would have died in the cold darkness between stars. But a captain named had stopped. He had used his own fuel and supplies to save those humans. He had asked for nothing in return. The government had even punished him for delaying his trade mission. Jake read the entry 3 times. He had read it many times before. Every human diplomat knew the important entries by heart. A soft chime interrupted his reading. Commander Lyra appeared in his doorway. She was tall with short gray hair and tired eyes. She had served on the borders of human space for 30 years. "The delegation just arrived," she said. "Something is wrong with them, Jake. They look scared." Jake closed the ledger and stood up. "Let us go meet them." The main hall of 7 was busy with aliens of many species. Jake saw them immediately. They were beings with 4 arms and large compound eyes. Their shells were usually a bright green color, but today they looked dull and gray. Ambassador led the delegation. He was the grandson of the captain who had saved those humans long ago. Jake had met him many times at trade meetings. Was always calm and confident. Today he moved like a creature carrying a heavy weight. "Ambassador," Jake said with a small bow, "welcome to 7. How can we help you?" Made a clicking sound that his translator turned into a sad laugh. "We did not come for help, human. We came to say goodbye. Our species is dying." The words hit Jake like a punch to the chest. "What do you mean?" Explained. "A fungal plague had appeared on the 6 months ago. It spread fast. Their medicine could not stop it. The fungus ate through their shells and killed them slowly. 500 million were already sick. In 1 year, their entire species would be gone." "We have asked the coalition for help," said. "They have sent scientists. They have sent doctors, but no one can find a cure. Our biology is too different from other species. No one knows how to save us." Jake felt his heart beating fast. He thought about the ledger. He thought about the entry from 2289. He thought about 43 humans floating in the darkness, waiting to die, until a captain decided to stop and help. "Excuse me for one moment," Jake said. He walked to a quiet corner and pulled out his communicator. He called a number that connected directly to Earth. A woman answered on the second ring. "Central Council, emergency line." "This is Jake 7, he said. "I am invoking Debt Protocol 7. They need our help. A fungal plague is killing their species." There was silence on the line. Then the woman spoke again. "Debt Protocol 7 confirmed. I am connecting you to the medical division." Jake waited. A man's voice came through. "This is Dr. Ben Carter. We have been watching the situation. How bad is it?" "They think they will be extinct in a year." Dr. Carter was quiet for a moment. "Tell them to hold on. We have been working on something. The fleet can be there in 6 hours. Jake ended the call and walked back to Ambassador. They looked at him with confusion. "Human, why did you leave our conversation to make a call?" "I was calling for help," Jake said simply. Made another clicking sound. "We did not ask for your help. We only came to inform you of our situation." "You did not need to ask." Before it could respond, alarms began ringing throughout the station. Commander ran to a window and looked out at the stars. Her eyes went wide. "Jake," she whispered, "look at this." Jake and the delegation rushed to the window. In the distance, lights were appearing in the darkness. 1, 5, 20, 50, 100 points of light that grew brighter every second. Human ships, medical ships, research vessels, cargo freighters loaded with supplies. They came out of faster-than-light travel in perfect formation, the largest fleet any of them had ever seen for a medical mission. Stared at the ships, his forearms trembled. "How?" he asked. "How did you do this so fast? We only just told you about the plague." Jake put his hand on the ambassador's shoulder. "Your grandfather saved 43 humans in 2289, he said. "We never forgot. We have been watching your species ever since. When we first heard about the plague 6 months ago, we started preparing. We have been waiting for you to come to us." Tears formed in A's compound eyes. "You remembered a favor from 60 years ago." Jake smiled. "We remember every favor, every single one, and we always pay them back." The human fleet moved closer to the station. On each ship, doctors and scientists prepared to fight a plague that was not their problem, for a species that had never asked them for anything. Because humanity never forgot kindness, and they always found a way to repay it, the human medical ship touched down as the red sun was setting. Dr. Ben Carter stepped out first. The air smelled like wet soil and something bitter. He knew that bitter smell was the fungal plague. Thousands of watched from the edges of the landing zone. They stood in silence. Their dull gray shells told him how sick many of them already were. "Set up the field hospital here," Ben ordered his team. "I want treatment stations ready in 2 hours." A young medic named Grace ran up beside him. She was 24 years old with black hair tied back in a simple knot. Her hands were already pulling equipment from the ship. "Dr. Carter, where do you want the antifungal tanks?" "Near the main treatment area. We need to start spraying the worst cases immediately." Grace nodded and ran off to work. Ben watched her for a moment. He knew why she had volunteered for this mission. Her grandmother had been one of the 43 people saved by the captain in 2289. Grace had grown up hearing stories about the alien who stopped to help when no one else would. Now she was here to repay that debt. Across the city, in a tall building made of crystal and stone, Elder sat alone in the Hall of Records. He was the oldest still alive. He had seen 200 years of history, but he had never seen anything like what the humans were doing. Pulled up the Coalition archives on his screen. He searched for records about humanity. What he found made his old heart beat faster. In 120 years of spacefaring, humans had repaid 847 recorded debts to other species. Every single time, they appeared exactly when they were needed most. They never asked for payment. They never demanded anything in return. They simply helped, and then they left. "How is this possible?" whispered to himself. He dug deeper into the records. He found something called the Kindness Ledger. The archives only had fragments of information about it, but what he read amazed him. Humans kept a record of every good deed ever done for them, every rescue, every trade of food during hard times, every moment when an alien chose to help a human instead of walking away. It was all written down. It was all remembered. Stood up slowly. His old legs hurt, but he needed to find the human diplomat. He needed to understand. He found Jake at the main hospital 3 hours later. The human was helping carry supplies. His uniform was dirty with dust and sweat. He did not look like a diplomat. He looked like a worker. Human called out, "I must speak with you." Jake set down his box and walked over. "Elder, I have heard of you. You are the keeper of history." "And you are the keeper of human debts," said. "I have read about your ledger. I do not understand it. Why do you remember these things? Why do you care about favors from 60 years ago?" Jake was quiet for a moment. He looked up at the red sky of. "When humans first went to the stars, we were alone," he said. "We found a universe full of species who had been traveling between worlds for thousands of years. They had empires. They had technology we could not understand, and we had nothing. Listened carefully. Many species ignored us, Jake continued. Some tried to take advantage of us, but a few, just a few, showed us kindness. They helped us when they did not have to. They saw us struggling and they stopped to offer a hand. Jake turned to look at the elder. We never forgot those moments. We wrote them down. We promised ourselves that we would repay every act of kindness, no matter how long it took, because we know what it feels like to be alone and scared in the darkness, and we know how much it means when someone chooses to help. Felt something strange in his chest. It took him a moment to realize it was hope. Your people are dying to save us, he said. I saw the reports. 3 of your ships were damaged coming through the nebula. Your doctors are working without sleep. Why do you give so much? Because your ancestor gave everything he had for 43 strangers, Jake said. He did not know them. He had no reason to help them, but he stopped anyway. That kind of kindness is rare in the universe. It deserves to be honored. A shout came from the hospital. Grace was waving at them. Dr. Carter says the first treatment is working, she called out. The fungus is dying. We can save them. All around the landing zone began to make clicking sounds. It was their way of crying with joy. They pressed their 4 hands together and looked up at the sky where human ships still orbited their world. Reached out and touched Jake's arm. It was the first time he had ever touched a human. We will never forget this, he said. Jake smiled. Neither will we. But even as they celebrated, Jake's communicator buzzed with a new message. He read it, and his face went pale. What is wrong? Asked. A distress signal, Jake said, from the collective. Step back, everyone knew they were warriors. They had killed thousands of humans in the border wars. Surely you will not help them, said. Jake pulled out his data pad and opened the kindness ledger. He scrolled to an entry from 40 years ago. His jaw tightened as he read it. During the border wars, an officer let 200 human children escape instead of taking them prisoner. He saved their lives. Jake looked up at. The debt is recorded. But they are your enemies. Jake put the data pad away. A debt is a debt. Humanity never forgets. He walked toward his ship to make another call to Earth. Behind him, watched in wonder. He was beginning to understand why the universe had underestimated humanity for so long. And why that was a terrible mistake. Admiral Nate Collins stood on the bridge of his flagship and stared at the war raging in front of him. Ships were fighting ships. Explosions lit up the darkness like angry stars. A civil war was tearing the collective apart. Admiral, we are receiving transmissions from both sides, his communications officer said. The Crimson Path faction is telling us to leave. High Warlord is asking us to wait. Nate gripped the railing in front of him. 20 years ago, he had lost his brother in the border wars against the. Part of him still hated them. Part of him wanted to watch them destroy each other. But he had his orders, and he had seen the ledger. Open a channel 2, he said. The flickered appeared. He was old, with scars covering his gray-scaled face. His yellow eyes looked tired. This was High Warlord, the leader of the faction fighting against the Crimson Path. Human Admiral said, "Why have you come? This is not your war. 40 years ago, you were a young officer at the Battle of New Hope Colony," Nate said. "Your commander ordered you to capture 200 human children as hostages. You refused. You let them escape instead." Was silent for a long moment. "I remember. I was punished for that. They took my rank away. I had to fight for 30 years to get it back." "We remember too," Nate said. "We are here to repay that debt." "I do not want your help," growled. "The do not accept charity from humans." "This is not charity. This is a debt being paid. You saved our children. Now we will save your people." Back on Earth, the council was meeting in emergency session. Senator Amy Park stood at the center of the chamber, her voice sharp with anger. They killed 18,000 humans in the border wars, she said. They burned 3 of our colonies. They took prisoners and treated them like animals. And now we want to save them. The chamber was full of shouting. Half the council agreed with her. The other half sat in silence, waiting for someone to speak. An old man in a simple gray uniform stood up. His name was, and he was the keeper of the kindness ledger. He had held this position for 40 years. "May I speak?" he asked quietly. The chamber went silent. Everyone knew who was. Everyone respected the weight of his position. "Senator Park is right about what the did," said. "We remember that too. We remember every human they killed, every colony they burned, every child who grew up without a parent because of their wars." He paused and looked around the room. "But we also remember the children who lived because one officer chose mercy over cruelty. 200 children who grew up, had families, and are alive today because refused to follow an evil order." Pulled out a small data chip. Those 200 children have had over 800 descendants, doctors, teachers, engineers, parents, a whole family tree of human lives that exists because one enemy showed kindness. He placed the chip on the table. "The question is not whether they deserve our help. The question is what kind of species we want to be. Do we only remember the bad things, or do we honor the good things too?" The vote was close, 52 in favor, 48 against. Humanity would honor the debt. Admiral Nate Collins received the message and turned to his crew. "All ships move into space. We are evacuating people. Defensive formation only. We do not fire unless fired upon." His fleet moved forward. 15 human ships flying into the middle of an alien civil war, not to fight, just to save lives. The Crimson Path saw them coming. They did not care about debts or honor. They saw only enemies. "Human vessels, this is Commander of the Crimson Path. Leave now or we will destroy you." Nate did not respond. His ships kept moving towards trapped fleet. The Crimson Path opened fire. The first volley hit the human cruiser starward. Her shields held, but barely. The second volley hit the destroyer Blue Moon. She began venting atmosphere from her port side. "Admiral, we're taking heavy damage," his first officer shouted. "Hold formation," Nate ordered. "Get our transports to ships. Start evacuating his people." Human transport ships flew through the crossfire. They docked with vessels and began pulling civilians aboard, mothers with children, elderly warriors too old to fight, young ones who had never wanted this war. The cruiser Nightfall took a direct hit to her engine room. She began to drift, dead in space. Escape pods launched as her crew abandoned ship. Watched from his command center, he saw human ships dying to protect lives. He saw human soldiers risking everything for people who had once been their enemies. "Why?" he whispered. "Why do they do this?" A human voice came over his communicator. It was Admiral Collins. "Because you showed mercy when you did not have to," Nate said, "and we never forget." The battle lasted 4 hours. 3 human cruisers were destroyed. 212 human sailors died in the darkness of space, but they saved over 30,000 civilians. When the last transport jumped to safety, sent a message to the human admiral. "I called you enemies once. I was wrong. I will tell my people what you did today. We will never forget." Nate Collins looked at the wreckage floating around his fleet. He thought about his brother. He thought about the border wars. He thought about hate and forgiveness and the strange weight of debts. "Neither will we," he said. And across the galaxy, species began to wonder. What favors had they shown humanity? What might the humans remember? The ledger was watching, and humanity always paid its debts. The great chamber of the Galactic Coalition had never been so full. Representatives from 200 species filled every seat. Cameras broadcast the meeting to 1 trillion beings across known space. Everyone wanted to hear about humanity and their strange ledger. Council Speaker Eth stood at the central platform. She was tall and covered in silver feathers. Her species, had led the coalition for 3,000 years. She had seen many strange things, but nothing like this. "We call this session to discuss the recent actions of the human species," she announced. "Their intervention on, their rescue of civilians. We demand to understand what they are doing and why." Jake walked to the speaker's platform. He wore his simple diplomat's uniform. In his hand, he carried a small data chip. "Council Speaker, representatives of the coalition," he began. "You want to know about our ledger? I will show you." He placed the chip in the display system. Numbers appeared on the giant screen behind him. "This chip contains 12,847 entries," Jake said. "Every recorded act of kindness that any alien species has ever shown to humanity. Some entries are large, like the captain who saved 43 lives. Some are small, like a trader who gave water to a thirsty human child 200 years ago." The chamber was silent. "We remember all of it," Jake continued. "Every favor, every mercy, every moment when someone chose to help us instead of walking away." A representative stood up. They were known throughout the galaxy as criminals and smugglers. His purple skin glistened under the lights. "What about us?" he asked nervously. "What do you remember about the—" Jake checked his data pad. 65 years ago, a smuggling crew helped 300 human refugees escape from the genocide. You broke coalition law to save them. Your captain spent 10 years in prison for it." The representative sat down slowly. His hands were shaking. "We remember," Jake said, "and when you need us, we will come." Across the chamber, beings from dozens of species began whispering to each other. Some looked hopeful. Some looked afraid. All of them were thinking about their own histories with humanity. Far away, in deep space, Captain Danny Shaw sat in his command chair and stared at a strange signal on his screen. His exploration vessel had been mapping unknown regions for 2 years. They had never seen anything like this. "What is it?" asked his first officer, a woman named Lisa Park. "It is a distress signal," Danny said. "But the language is ancient. It is coming from a species called the Quiet Ones." Lisa looked confused. "I have never heard of them." "No one has. They stopped talking to other species 80 years ago. They just disappeared." Danny opened a channel to Earth and connected to Jake's office. Jake answered immediately. "Captain Shaw, what did you find?" "A distress signal from the Quiet Ones. Their star is dying. Solar radiation is killing their planet. They have maybe 6 months left." Jake was quiet for a moment, then he spoke. "The Quiet Ones, I know that name. Check the ledger, entry 4721. Danny pulled up the entry and read it out loud. 80 years ago, a lost human exploration ship received star charts from an unknown source. The charts led them to safety. The source was later identified as the Quiet Ones. "They saved one of our ships," Jake said. "They have never spoken to us since, but we have been looking for them ever since that day." Danny looked at his crew. "What do we do?" "Stay there, I am sending help. The Quiet Ones may not want to talk, but we are going to save them anyway." Back at the coalition chamber, Speaker Eth was growing frustrated. She did not understand what the humans were doing. She did not understand why they gave so much and asked for so little. "Human representative," she said, "your species is stretching itself thin. You are helping and now the Quiet Ones. You have lost ships. You have lost people. What do you want in return?" Jake looked up at her. "Nothing." "That is impossible. Every species wants something." "We want to live in a universe where kindness matters," Jake said. "We want to prove that good deeds are not forgotten. We want to show that small acts of mercy can echo across centuries." He pointed at the screen where the ledger entries were still displayed. "Every entry on this list represents a moment when someone chose to help us. Those moments changed who we are. They gave us hope when we had none. They reminded us that the universe is not always cold and dark. Jake's voice grew stronger. We repay these debts because the beings who helped us deserve to be honored, and because we hope that one day, when humanity needs help, someone will remember what we did and choose to help us too. The chamber was completely silent. Eth stared at the human for a long time. Then she did something no council speaker had done in 500 years. She bowed her head. "I am beginning to understand," she said softly. But the session was interrupted by a new message. Jake looked at his data pad and his face went pale. "What is wrong?" Eth asked. "The oldest entry in the ledger," Jake said. "We just found the species who created it. They are called we thought they were extinct, but they are not. They have been hiding for 90 years. He looked up at the screen. "In our first year among the stars, a dying ship gave us the coordinates to a habitable world. Without those coordinates, our first colony would have failed. Humanity might never have survived." Jake's voice broke slightly. "We have been searching for them ever since, to thank them, to repay them." He turned to face the entire chamber, "And we finally found them." The representatives watched as Jake walked out of the chamber. They did not know what to say. They had just witnessed something they had never seen before. A species that remembered everything. A species that honored every debt. A species that searched for 90 years just to say thank you. Humanity was not like the others, and the galaxy was only beginning to understand why. The sanctuary was hidden in a nebula where no one thought to look. It was an old station, built from the wreckage of ships that had fled their dying world 90 years ago. Only 2,000 remained. They were the last of a civilization that had once spanned 12 star systems. Jake stood at the airlock of his shuttle and waited. He had traveled 3 weeks to reach this place. He carried nothing but a small data pad containing the first page of the kindness ledger. The airlock opened and stood on the other side. She was tall and thin, with pale blue skin and large dark eyes. Her name was Elder, and she was the leader of the survivors. She looked at Jake with a mixture of fear and confusion. "Human," she said. Her voice was soft like wind through dry leaves. "How did you find us?" "We have been looking for you for 90 years, Jake said. "We never stopped searching." Shook her head slowly. "Why? We gave you star charts once. It was a small thing. We were dying. We wanted someone to live even if we could not." Jake held up his data pad. "May I show you something?" He walked beside her through the station. The halls were dark and cold. He saw children looking at him from doorways. They had never seen an alien before. They had grown up in hiding, taught that the universe had forgotten them. They reached a large room that served as the community center. Hundreds of gathered to see the strange human visitor. Jake stood before them and opened his data pad. "This is the first page of our kindness ledger," he said. "It contains the first debt humanity ever recorded." He read the entry out loud. "Year 2227, human colony ship Wanderer lost in uncharted space. Life support failing. Received coordinates to habitable world from unknown vessel. Source, ship. All 4,000 colonists survived." The room was completely silent. "This entry is over 120 years old," Jake continued. "It has been on the first page of our ledger since the day we received your gift. Every human child learns about it in school. Every diplomat knows it by heart. We have monuments on 3 worlds dedicated to the who saved our people." Was crying. Blue tears ran down her pale face. "You remembered us," she whispered. "For all this time you remembered." "We never forgot," Jake said, "and we are here to repay our debt." He pulled out a second data pad and showed her images of green worlds and blue oceans. "The human government is offering you a new, full coalition membership. Protection for as long as humanity exists. You will never have to hide again." They looked at each other. Children grabbed their parents. Old ones held hands. They had lived in fear for so long. They had believed they were alone and forgotten. And now humans had come. Humans had searched for 90 years just to say thank you. On Accord Prime, the Coalition Chamber was broadcasting the meeting to the entire galaxy. A trillion beings watched as Jake stood before the survivors. Speaker Eth watched from her seat. Beside her, Ambassador of the wept openly. High Warlord of the sat in silence, his face unreadable. "This changes everything," Eth said quietly. "Yes," O agreed, "it does." The broadcast showed Elder stepping forward. She placed her thin blue hand on Jake's shoulder. "We accept your gift," she said, "but we must know, what do you want in return? What do humans want from the galaxy?" Jake smiled. It was the same question everyone asked. It was the same question he always answered the same way. "We want nothing," he said. "The repayment is the act itself. We store favors not to create obligations. We remember kindness because it deserves to be remembered. Every act of mercy matters. Every good deed echoes through time." He looked at the camera that was broadcasting to the galaxy. "We are humans. We came from a small blue world at the edge of the galaxy. We were alone and scared when we first reached the stars, but beings like the showed us kindness, and we decided that we would spend the rest of our existence honoring those moments." Jake turned back to, "The ledger is not a list of debts. It is a promise that kindness will always be rewarded, that mercy will always be honored, that no good deed, no matter how small, will ever be forgotten." The broadcast ended, but its effects spread across the galaxy like ripples in water. They opened a new database. They called it the Memory of Kindness. They began recording every favor they received and every debt they would repay. In space, addressed his people. He told them about the humans who had died to save civilians. He announced that they would begin their own record of debts. For the first time in their history, they would honor mercy instead of strength. The Quiet One sent a single transmission to human space. It contained no words, just a symbol that meant, "We remember too." Even though the criminals and smugglers of the galaxy started writing things down, debts owed, kindnesses received. They had spent centuries taking from others. Now they wondered what it would feel like to give. Jake returned to his small office on 7. The room was dark except for the blue glow of his computer screen. He opened the kindness ledger and began adding new entries. But these were different. These were not debts humanity owed. These were kindnesses humanity had received in return. They had sent medical supplies to a human colony hit by plague. They had rescued a stranded human freighter in their space. The Quiet Ones had shared star maps of unknown regions. The cycle was beginning again, kindness flowing outward and returning, debts being created and repaid, a galaxy learning that small acts of mercy could change everything. Jake smiled and kept typing. The ledger had grown from a simple list into something much bigger. It had become proof that the universe did not have to be cold and dark. Because humanity never forgot kindness. And now neither would anyone else.